Okay, so welcome to Gunfather Milsim live Q&A. Merry Christmas, everybody. Day after. Uh, just figured I'd do a live Q&A. I've been thinking about a bunch of videos I want to do, and I decided I'm gonna just do a live Q&A of them and just kind of hammer it out and see what everybody thinks. So first thing I want to talk about, and if you have any comments, feel free to throw them in the chat and direct the conversation wherever it may go. First thing I want to talk about is the off season. So here where I live in Nebraska, usually this time of year it's like, I don't know, 20 degrees out, 10 degrees out, and we have snow. This year's kind of a particularly mild winter, so it's kind of, 40s, 50s. So technically it's still warm enough to be playing airsoft, but all the fields are still shut down anyway. All the paintball fields we usually play at lately are all closed. So even though the weather is permitting us to play, it's still technically the off season. And I like during the off season, I usually work on project guns. Usually work on getting some new kit together. If I'm buying stuff, T&E some new equipment here and there, and honestly just hit the gym and lift a lot of weights and try to build up strength. I do not go out and play a lot of winter games. A lot of airsoft players talk a big game when it comes to playing in the winter, playing in the snow, but most of them don't do it. Most of them, I find that they're all talk online, and then when it comes down for everybody to actually show up in the snow and play, it's usually about a quarter of the people that say, "Hey, we'll be there," and usually ends up being a very low turnout game. So the big problem with playing in the winter and playing in the cold is that it eats up batteries, and any guns that are not the best, kind of your low end guns, are going to break. So that cheap pot metal that a lot of airsoft gears and airsoft internals are made out of, it gets brittle when it's cold and they tend to break. And your batteries, all the small little stick batteries don't hold up hardly at all, and the kind of the higher mAh batteries only have about a third to half of the length of time they usually have, as far as the amount of play time you can get out of that battery. So I find whenever I do a winter game, within one game, about half the players, all their crap's broken anyway. Never had a problem personally because I use kind of better guns and better batteries, and I plan accordingly. But it's just so frustrating to the point that now we hardly do them at all anymore. Yes, Zombie 13 green gas is absolutely unusable. Absolutely unusable in the winter, just because PV equals NRT. So personally, during the off season, I'm just stuck uh, working out, building project guns, and building equipment. Real world training doesn't stop. I have access to an indoor range where I work, so I'm in there putting in time shooting on the range. But as far as airsoft goes, it's shut down. And locally, we used to have a CQB field. We'd play all winter, but that's been closed for several years now. So there is no indoor CQB option where I live, unfortunately. All right, first question. Well, here we go. Thoughts on vector optics? Even a SIG Romeo 5 costs 3 times as much as in the US where I'm from. Nearly the same price as a Holosun 403. Is it worth a try, or should I take the plunge and save for a Holosun? I'm not familiar with vector optics. The SIG optics I've found, I've looked through, are high end because it's SIG. Do I think they're worth the money as compared to a Holosun? I don't have enough experience with the SIG optics to say. I can't imagine they're that much better. Lately, I've been T&Eing quite a few Holosuns, especially some of their smaller optics. Their pistol-mounted optics and their micros. And I can't say enough good things about Holosun. I love Holosun. They're neat. And I have a lot of reservations about Chinese-made optics. Chinese-made anything. But I've noticed in recent years, the quality has really come up quite a bit with these optics. And as I said in a video recently, the big hang-up with Holosun and all these optics is the warranty. The warranty is just kind of real sketchy, real questionable. I have Vortex, Loophole. I mean, any of the major, American-made optics. When you buy them, the warranties, it's one paragraph. We got you. We cover you for everything with the exception of intentional damage. So if you intentionally like throw it in a brick wall, you're on your own. If whatever. But other than that, they got you. They'll even cover BB strikes that break the glass. I know Vortex will cover BB strikes. If you're playing Airsoft and it breaks it, they don't care. They'll cover it. So contrast that with the Holosun warranty I just read on the My Optic I have, the 407C, I think. It's like 2 pages. And the first paragraph is, hey, we got you. And then it's 2 pages of unless. It doesn't really give me a lot of, faith in that being followed up on. I don't think they're going to cover you. I think they're looking for any excuse not to. So that's just me. I've never had to, use the warranty, but I just, warranties cost money. And I think that's where a lot of your cost savings come from getting these Holosun optics as the warranty is crap. Because the quality is certainly, it appears to be damn near as good as the U.S. made stuff, especially when you're dealing with Holosun. So I would advise you to go with the Holosun. I don't see it, especially from an Airsoft perspective, being worth the money. I've been using it over my RMR. I prefer the Holosun to my RMR. So my Trijicon RMR is, and I love Trijicon, but I'm using Holosun right now. So I still have the RMR, but any future optics are probably going to be Holosun I'm working on. I'm testing them at work to get them approved for the department, so the rest of the department can use them as an approved optic. That's a big part of what I do at my job. My day job is I test optics and lights and all sorts of crap. Recent video I posted, just a short one on the channel, was just me shooting in the dark using a light. I was actually testing a light. It was the nightstick pistol light. So I was T&E in that, shooting in the dark. A very short video showing you some of the cool stuff I do. One thing I want to talk about is this gun. So this is a Cybergun Sportline M4. It is made of plastic. They call it nylon fiber reinforced polymer, but that's just a fancy word for really cool plastic. This is an entry-level gun. I don't do entry-level guns. I never have done entry-level guns. When I got into the game, I basically started out with a $300 ICS, which was their pro line model at the time. I bought this one for my son. He's 8, and this was his Christmas present, and he loves it. And up until this point, all he knows is Nerf. That's his only kind of similar sport he was into, besides football and all the other stuff he does. So I bought this gun for him as an entry-level gun. So basically, any of you that have children know that kids can be kind of fleeting with what sports they do. They can get invested in a sport, play it for a few months or 1 year, and then all of a sudden they'll move on to something else. So like a lot of parents, I don't like investing a lot of money into a sport until I know that the kid's going to stick with it for a while. So as much as I wanted to buy him a high-end gun, I would buy him a high-end gun, or just let me use one of mine. I kind of wanted to give him ownership of it and give him his own gun. So I started kind of investigating, what gun I would buy for him. And I've never really looked into entry-level guns at all. Back when I started playing, there really weren't a lot of good entry-level models other than just Cymas. So looked into it and looked into this one. It is polymer bodied. I wanted to get him a polymer body gun because they're lighter, and honestly, he just doesn't have the strength yet to hold the weapon up. He's not quite there. I think he'll be there soon because he does a lot of other sports. But I wanted to give him a lighter gun. So after a lot of looking into it, I decided on this one because it appeared to give a lot of bang for the buck. It appeared to give a lot of features for the money I spent. Now I bought it for $140. It was on Black Friday, so it was like discounted a certain percentage. It ended up being like $125 for this model. There were cheaper models out there, but they had like the traditional M4 kind of plastic grip, and I wanted this one because it had an aluminum rail and came with these rail covers. And I kind of wanted to, if my son wanted to kind of mount stuff on it, I wanted to get, kind of show him how rails worked and everything. So I wanted to give him that option. Also came with this cheap vertical forend grip, which he thinks is cool. That's why it's on there right now. So let's just go over the features real quick on this gun. It is a Cybergun M4, but Cybergun isn't a real company as far as they don't manufacture things. They just rebrand things. So it has Colt trades on it right there. And the only reason the Colt's trades are there is because Cybergun paid for them. Other than that, as far as who makes this gun, the gearbox is by S&T. As far as the exterior, the actual body of it, I have no idea. I'm pretty sure it's the same body that Lancer Tactical uses, and it's the same body that a lot of the cheaper Cyberguns use. As far as what factory it comes out of in China, couldn't tell you. And that's the thing with a lot of these cheaper airsoft guns. They all originate from kind of the same couple of factories in China as far as the bodies go, and then different people just add different stuff to them. Different manufacturers like Cybergun or Lancer Tactical or whoever, and they sell them here on the U.S. market. So you're going to see a lot of commonality in parts as you look across these different things. In fact, when I was looking into this gun, I was looking at the reviews of different cheap models, entry-level guns, and I'm like, looking at the gearbox, I'm like, this is the same gearbox in all these guns. And so to some degree, it doesn't really matter which one you buy. It's whichever one is on sale. Talking about the exteriors real quick. Aluminum rail system, I like. Outer barrel appears to be made of aluminum. I like that. As far as metal goes, that's about it. Other than this dust cover here, everything else, and the fake bolt, which is really flimsy, everything else on this gun is this polymer, which is fine. I don't expect this gun to take up with a lot of abuse, and I wouldn't expect to drop it off like from 20 feet onto concrete and expect it to survive. Not going to happen. But I think it's going to hold up for what my son's going to put it through. Stock tube isn't metal. It's plastic. I would prefer this buffer tube to be metal if I had my choice, and it costs a few more bucks. A metal buffer tube would be preferred because that is a common point. If kids take a header into the dirt, that's a common breakage point here. So I don't, it appears to be a good polymer. I remember when polymer guns first came out, ICS's polymer guns in particular were really crappy. They were the plastic bodies were just trash. They've improved them since then. All the companies have with the fiber resin, but this one appears to be pretty good. Do I expect it to hold up with a ton of abuse? No. Other things it came with, rear sight, lock and rear sight. That's the same sight you're going to see on any Lancer Tactical that I've seen online. Crane stock, can hold a big battery. It's cheap. It's as cheap as all the other airsoft crane stocks. Does hold the battery pretty well. It's got this cool little... This comes off. This opens up. There's your battery. I think right now... I got a Titan in here. Let's see what the hell I got. Titan 2600 mAh LiPo 11.1, and it ran that 11.1 LiPo just fine. A little bit I was shooting it. Stock has a QD mount on it. One complaint: it does not have a single point sling mount or any sling mount at all down here, which is kind of where I prefer them. Selector switch is pretty solid. Overall, it's okay. It's nothing stellar. It's an entry-level gun. The nice thing about the gun is the quality of the gearbox. It's this S&T Gen 3. It's got a micro switch trigger, which really isn't that uncommon anymore. Micro switch triggers kind of remind me of cars when they have commercials and it's like power windows. Well, yeah, they all come with power windows now. Yeah, most airsoft guns are coming with micro switch triggers now. It comes with a MOSFET. Steel gears, full teeth steel piston, which is kind of cool, and it's got a quick change spring system, which is awesome. Just a lot of good internals. One thing I noticed on the internals that was kind of crappy was the nozzle. The air nozzle doesn't have an O-ring in it. It looks kind of, cheap plastic, not that impressed with it. Also, the bearings, the spring guide looks kind of cheap. Is the spring guide really that big a deal? No. But if I were ever to open the gearbox, I'd definitely change out the spring guide. Gears and everything else look great. Piston head looks good. Ported piston head. The motor running an 11.1 LiPo in it seems to run well. Chronoed about 386, give or take 5. When I first shot it, it was chronoing about 375, give or take 10. And I noticed the bucking and the hop up was kind of cheap, so I switched to a guarded clear bucking. That bumped it up to 386 with a variance of 5. I imagine if I replace the air nozzle with a O-ring air nozzle, any of them, that would settle down probably to a variance of 1 or 2. I imagine. Is it worth doing right now? No, because honestly, my son's not going to care. He doesn't. Right now, all he's going to do is plink in the backyard with it, maybe do some drills, have some fun. He's not hitting the field anytime soon. Other than that, the hop-up unit is, I see right there, it's this red plastic hop-up unit. When I first looked at it, it was kind of cheap. I'm like, this thing doesn't look that good. I'm going to replace that pretty early. But when I took it out of the gun to replace the bucking, I kind of handling it, it felt pretty stiff, felt pretty solid. The adjustments were real solid. Didn't seem to move, didn't seem to want to wander. I thought, well, what the hell, we'll give it a chance. And it hops, I only went up to 0.28 gram BBs, but it overhops them just fine. So I'm going to just let my son run with it and see what happens. I've no intention of changing that for him anytime soon. Once again, chronoed about 386, which, from out of the box, pretty good. Entry-level gun, entry-level motor, shooting 386. Doesn't seem to be struggling to do it. So, all in all, for the price, and I've seen these, with different furniture as low as like $110, $105. Once again, this was about $125. Great gun, and I think my son's gonna love it. I would highly recommend to anybody that wants any of their kids to get into airsoft. You don't want to spend too much money. Look into one of these. And they come under a lot of different names and titles. Like I said, this one is the Cybergun Sportline, but I've seen them under the Cyma brand. And I believe the Lancer, everybody likes to talk shit about Lancer, but Lancers are entry-level guns. They're designed to be entry-level. So all your Lancer Tactical Gen 2s are basically this. And I'm having a hard time finding any fault with it. Comes with a high cap. Fits, shoots, works good. So that's my quick 2-cent review on the Cybergun Sportline M4. Brian, in reference to Holosuns, you're saying, yeah, you guys got to find a secondhand Holosun, but damn, no one seems to be selling secondhand Holosuns. That's usually a pretty good indicator it's a good product. If you can't find them used anywhere, pretty good indicator it's a good product. How do I deal with holding? So this is from Mr. Cook of Wonder. How do I deal with holding those, or how do you deal with those holding corners in important rooms? I find that trying to sneak peek gets me shot in the shoulder or the arm as I try to peek. Okay, I think what you're talking about there is a prepared defender. So you got a prepared defender in a room. They're watching the door into the room. Their fingers on the trigger. And as you try to pie the room or try to peek into it, you're getting shot by them. Very common in airsoft. On the SWAT side of things, it's the most dangerous thing we're going to run into is a prepared defender. And the question is, for any method of CQB, is how does that method of CQB stack up? How does it work against prepared defender? Because people who either aren't going to fight, they're compliant, they're asleep, whatever, they're surprised, you're going to handle those people just fine regardless of what CQB method you use. That's why, stacking and clearing rooms, traditional stack and flow method, it works for people like that. And that's predominantly the people you're going to run into real world. And that gives us a false sense of security and a false sense of confidence in that stack and flow technique. But stack and flow against prepared defenders, you get wiped out. A lot of it comes down to OODA loops. because you have to observe the whole room, and they're already observing the door. They've already made the decision to shoot whatever comes through it, and you have to go through the door and kind of assess and decide, oh, where are they at? Oh, there they are. Orient towards them and make your decision whether or not you're going to shoot. You're too far behind the curve. You're going to lose. So the question is, how do you turn that around, and how do you get them to react to you? One way you can do it is throw in grenades, throw in flashbangs, throw in in the airsoft perspective, throw in your whatever number of EG, I forget the hell they're called. And I use Thunder Bees. I still use Thunder Bees, but any number of airsoft grenade thrown in there, get them to worry about something else, get them to be moving and displacing. Another way you can do it is do a very, very, very slow pie of the room. So my usual pie would be basically 4-step process. I would do that, turn that into a 12 or 16 step where I'm just taking very, very, very small bites of that corner. And maybe even step back from the corner a little bit, because the closer you are to the corner, the harder it is to control how small those bites are. So step a couple feet back if it's possible, and then take really small bites, and preferably you're going to see a leg or an elbow before you see the whole body of that person. Not always. It's not always perfect. But by really slowing it down on those prepared defenders and taking little small bites, a lot of times you can get a look at them before they get a chance to look at you. There's other methods that maybe push the rules depending on where you're playing. Something I've always been told is recon by fire. In a real bad situation, I was an Israeli guy that I did a counterterrorism class with over 10 years ago, taught me that stuff. Recon by fire, where basically you start firing into the room and you take little bites and you just keep firing and firing and firing. And what that does is it forces everybody in the room over to one side to avoid that fire. And then when you get to that side, you'll finally run into everybody in the room, and you'll get them there. I think that's it's basically blind fire. It's pushing. It's pre-firing, same thing. Blind fire. It's pushing the limits of what is pre-fire and what is blind fire. So that's probably not legal in most places, and it really shouldn't be, because you can't control if somebody's really close. They're going to be inside med. Now, if there is no med, then maybe that's legal and maybe it can work at that field. And honestly, the reason people pre-fire is because it works. It's because it is effective, because it gets you ahead of that OODA loop. So that's my advice. What I would not recommend is run in the room. Do not go charging through the room. Don't stack up with 6 dudes and just charge in and try to take the room. You're going to lose. You're going to lose. I'd probably get a friend, have them cross, get 2 guns in there if you can, and throw bangs in there before you do that clear. But I would definitely do it from the doorway. So, long answer, but that's what I would do. Brian Linquinco, is it practical / tactically sound to switch to a pistol in your offhand to peek into a room and clear it? No. This is a short answer, no. I'm trying to think of a reason I would do that. Because switching into a pistol in your offhand, your pistol, when you draw your pistols on your dominant, hip or whatever, your dominant side, it's set up for your dominant hand. Same when using your rifle. And although I have met a couple shooters who do rifle with one hand and pistol with another, it's not common. My gut feeling is no. Even if you set up your rig to draw with your offhand, I suppose you could, but the only time I would see a pistol being advantageous was when the room was really, really small or really cramped, like a small closet, maybe. I could see that, or a real tight corner, a little nook, or in the corner of a room. Then I could see it. But even then, I think you're more often than not, you're just going to draw with your primary hand, which is the same when you use your rifle on. Whereas with a rifle, I'll just grab this because it's here. With a rifle, there's an advantage to switching sides, right? Switching shoulders so you don't expose as much going around your weak side. You don't get that with a handgun. With a handgun, it's more or less as advantageous either way on your same hand. So there's really not an advantage to using your offhand over your primary in that respect. I suppose there might be something to said for it being a little bit quicker and easier to stow your primary weapon if you're just using your offhand weapon and you can just, hold this. But if you're using a sling, who cares? I don't really see a big advantage there in any stretch of the imagination. But if that's what you're doing, go right ahead. I just not really how I would do it. There's definitely an advantage to peeking with a pistol on a small room because it's easier to move that weapon around your body to really dig those hard corners. Whereas with the long gun or rifle, it's a little more difficult. Let's see. One other thing I want to talk about today was this rig I've been putting together. Shamelessly showing off a Gunfather Milsim patch. So, traditionally, I am a little bit of a gear snob. Not horrendously bad, but, back in, early 2000s, when I started on the police department, there really wasn't a lot of good gear options out there. There was military stuff, military surplus, and there was Blackhawk, and that's about it. And everybody, it was really easy to become a rep for Blackhawk. Like, everybody ran Blackhawk stores, like, out of their trunks just so they could get discounted gear. But that was it. It was Blackhawk and then military surplus. And then, as time went on, especially with the global war on terror, there was a ton of really high quality gear manufacturers just coming out of the woodwork. Okay, and there's too many to name, but all those good gear manufacturers, but a lot of them were kind of expensive, especially for the recreational shooter or the airsoft hobbyist. So enter to the market Condor. Condor starts putting out a lot of tactical gear, and of all shapes and sizes, a lot of knockoffs, all Chinese made stuff, and the quality was really, really bad. Okay, it was shit. And I always used to say, well, Condor's, it's good enough for airsoft, but I would never use it for any real world operation because you just couldn't count on it. It would just fall apart. And that was where it was for quite a few years. However, in more recent years, the last couple, I've seen a lot of the Chinese-made tactical gear being of a lot higher quality. So much so that I ordered some pouches here and some pouches there, and I found that they are not shit. They are not crap. And it's kind of shocking to me because I want to confirm my personal bias of, no, it's cheap Chinese shit. And then some of this stuff's actually pretty damn good. And it's well made. The stitching is good. The materials are good. And I'm having a hard time discouraging people from buying it. Even Condor's up there gaining quite a bit. Condor's still kind of cheap crap, but their stitching has come a long way. So that brings me, Kyle, talking about LBX. Got some LBX right here. Brings me to this carrier right here. So I got this carrier for range duty at work. Okay, I got some soft 3A plates in here. So this is when I'm working the range. And, you got to have something that stops at least handgun rounds. And that'll do that for me. This is an old Velocity Systems Low Pro carrier I purchased. Stand up, put it on for y'all. And I recently purchased, because I needed a new cummerbund system for it, and then I was looking around for one, and traditionally I've been using the Blaze Defense Systems one. Their kind of tube knockoff system. I did a video review of it, and as I recall, it costs like $90, and you only need to do one side. So for $90 you get to do, you can outfit 2 sets of armor, or you can buy the first spear tubes that are kind of cost prohibitive. That set is more or less $120. So I was kind of looking for a tube cummerbund solution to this armor because it needed one. And I came upon Petac gear, P-E-T-A-C. And I found it on Amazon, okay? And the cummerbund here was $35, okay? And it came with tube system on each side. Came with these little kind of built-in magazine pouches on the sides, and attaches via Velcro here, and Velcro in the back. $35. My expectation was very low. I thought this stuff's gonna suck. It's gonna be trash. I'm throwing away $35, but I figured, hey, I'll take a shot on 35 before I drop 120 on a first beer set. So this arrives in the mail, and to my amazement, it's actually pretty good quality. It's pretty good stuff. The stitching is good. The materials are good. It appears like it's going to hold up. And once again, I'm wearing this at the range. It's not life or death. And I'm not saying you should put it on anything life or death, but for airsoft, more than adequate. Definitely more than adequate. If you need, you want to switch the tubes, and I highly recommend it because that's just really convenient to do. Find yourself one of these. Find yourself a Petac cummerbund. So I was so impressed with that, I bought their dangler. Okay, this dangler pouch here. Small, it's not the best, but I kind of like it. Once again, as high quality as the cummerbund was, I like it for the money. 26, small, more compact, as opposed to spending $60, $70 on a more high-end dangler. If you don't use a dangler, you should. I used to make fun of guys who wore them. I'm like, oh, look at that, you know, it's like your fanny pack. It's like your little purse. I tell you what, it is so awesome once you have one and you start putting. It's like my catch-all pouch. That's where I put when I'm on the range. Is where I put my I go here. Where I put my Sharpies. Where I put my multi-tools. Where I put snacks. Everything. Can't beat it. So I guess what I'm saying is Petac gear doesn't suck. And it's pretty good stuff for the money. So I still had to find something I could mount magazines to. So I looked and I ended up getting the LBX Tactical Low Pro panel. Now this was $85. Okay. It's got your just a bunch of webbing and shit and holds crap in place. It's got Velcro on the inside and the outside. Admin pouch. Nothing special. But stitching's good. Materials are good. Your little ties here on your zippers are good. One interesting thing it has here, so it's got 3 magazine pouches in front, but there's Velcro in these magazine pouches, so when they shut, there's a little bit of Velcro that keeps it from flopping open. So if you take all these magazines out, it'll stay tight to you instead of that gap in there causing problems. Kind of a cool feature. It does make it a little more difficult to reload a magazine into them, but I think it's worth it for the convenience. One gripe about LBX: their Swift clips are 3/4 inch. Everybody else's Swift clips are 1 inch. Okay, so this is a Velocity Systems plate carrier. It came with Swift clips here that are removable. I removed them. Those are 1 inch Swift clips. If you buy anything from Haley Strategic, 1 inch Swift clips. LBX, 3/4 inch. So it's not compatible. And I'm having a hard time finding a kit that'll convert this over. So right now, I'm stuck with, zip tie. Right there. Zip tie. Anybody who knows me knows that my solution to most things is usually going to be just zip tie it. So I'll be looking for a solution to that problem, but honestly, zip tie is probably good enough, especially for what I'm using it for. I'll just probably keep the zip tie on there forever. And got an Israeli bandage in here. This magazine pouch here on the left. I'm not the most flexible guy in the world. I don't exactly have T-Rex arms, but I could probably pull this mag out if I had to. Difficult to reinsert, especially under stress. See, I missed it. Still missing it. Not going to reinsert under stress. All these other ones back here in the back, no way I'm going to be able to use those. And I don't know any guy who has that kind of flexibility in their shoulders and their arm to use those. So it's kind of cool that they're there, but honestly, kind of useless. Unless it's the very front one. For me, I'm going to put probably medical in there. So here I got a Israeli bandage in it. Bandage. Because I made it for the range. And on the range, that's probably what I'm going to need in a hurry. You know, more than bullets when I'm instructing is, God forbid, somebody get injured, I'm going to need a bandage. So it's handy that I can fit those Israelis in there. So that's my 2 cents on Petac gear and LBX. It's good stuff. I want it to be cheap Chinese shit. I wanted to say it's not that good, but it's pretty good. It's got me looking at maybe getting an LBX, I believe it's called the Armitage 2. Their plate carrier. Real lightweight plate carrier, but I think it looks pretty cool. I've looked at it before, and I said, I don't want to take the chance on LBX. Don't want to spend that much money. Maybe I will. Having said that, LBX Tactical Low Pro panel was about $85. That's not that much cheaper than some of the Haley Strategic panels or the Velocity Systems panels that vest is designed to take. So maybe you're better off just buying the Velocity Systems ones at that point. You know, LBX, the price point is getting up there. So that's my 15 cents on LBX. Mr. Cook of Wonder, any advice on setting up a more fleshed out plate carrier? Mine looks bare bones with no personality. I'm not the guy to talk to about fleshed out plate carriers. In fact, this one we were just talking about here, as far as patches go, I'm not a big patch guy. You know, this coming from a guy who sells patches. I'll put a big American flag right here on the front, and that's it for patches. Other than that, back here, a placard, maybe my name, my call sign. If I'm at work, it'll just say my last name. Maybe a placard on there that says police. If I'm going to use it operationally, you got to have that. But other than that, I don't put a lot of flashy, weird ass patches on my gear. It's kind of an airsoft thing. It's not really a lot. Real world guys don't have a lot of morale patches on their stuff. Usually that kind of thing is regulated. Your SOPs and your commands say, hey, you can't have all that silly, crap, all those silly patches on your gear. My team, real world team, you can have some morale patches. They kind of turn a blind eye to it, but it can't be anything. If it were overly offensive, you get called out on it, you get in trouble, and then nobody could have anything. So for the most part, everybody just keeps it pretty vanilla, pretty much, American flags, and that's about it. As far as flushing out the plate carrier, I think a slim design is better than kind of a overbuilt design. You don't want to put, like a lot of people do, that stack of 6 M4 mags right in front. I mean, I used to do it all the time, but that's so much stuff. Then you end up going prone, and you're almost like a little teeter-totter, tipping back and forth on those magazines. It's also a pain in the ass if you got to go through a tight spot. It can be a pain in the ass getting in and out of vehicles. I find you're better off just going the single stack like that. And as far as putting stuff in front, sometimes people put pistol mags in there. I like little pistol mag pouches in front. I like the HSGI Kangaroo, the panel. And I'll go grab it. So this is my plate carrier, my current game plate carrier. I think I've featured this one quite a bit on the channel. Just a Banshee. Shellback Tactical Banshee. This one's old. I think this thing's, it's got to be pushing 10 years old. Heavy use. But as you can see here, HSGI Kangaroo pouches. Kangaroos are all empty right now. The pistol pouches are empty. Sometimes I'll put a flashlight in there if I need to. I just kind of use them as catch-all pouches. Flashlight, rarely do I put actually a pistol magazine when I'm playing airsoft because there's no point. Real world, I'd probably put one pistol magazine in there. Multi-tool, always have a multi-tool. Other than that, this is set up for my SR25. Magazines. That's it. You don't need to put all sorts of weird breaching tools and pens and shit. I mean, that's not really relevant to airsoft. Just keep it simple. Got a little Grimlock right here. I use that to hold my gloves when my gloves get wet. I just got to keep them, and because they're sweaty, I put them on there so they can dry. That's it. It's a good place to store your gloves. Other than that, comms on my right side. Fast mag for an extra mag on my left side. Tubes. That's it. I keep mine pretty simple. On my comms, right here, I don't do really complicated comms in airsoft, and to some degree in the real world. I don't like using complicated comms. Zip tie the shit out of it. Zip tie this in place because it will move on you. It'll get loose. Zip tie earpiece. Everything's zip tied in right here, so it can't get loose. And see, American flag, my bullshit patches. Got my, so everybody knows who I am. When they're shooting in the back, so they can brag about it later. Like I'm particularly hard to hit, which I'm not. That's it. That's I don't know. I'm not the guy to talk to about a gaudy plate carrier. I don't put a lot of crap on it. Maybe some stuff on your back. Problem with stuff on your back is you can't get to it. You know. Real world, I keep on my SWAT rig. I keep my comms on my back, but I'm not really changing channels ever. I think I'm going to switch that when I get my new armor here in a few months. We're getting brand new stuff. I'm probably going to put my comms right up here. So I'm just tired of messing with it on my back. Just stuff on your back. It's also a pain in the ass when you get in a car. Anytime you have stuff on your back, it's kind of hard to get to. So it's kind of nice if you got like maybe extra medical equipment's nice putting back there, so you can have somebody else grab it for you if you got to work on somebody. But there's not a lot of good stuff you can put on your back that you can have access to. It's usually going to be stuff that, you know, your coworkers can have access to. Mayday-san Airsoft. Sorry, I butchered that. Any thoughts on running 30-round mag setups? So real caps. I don't like real caps in airsoft just because you're putting yourself at a big disadvantage. It just is what it is. I love mid caps. I run them about 100, 110 is how I load my mid caps. There's still plenty of reloading when you run them 110. You know, with any more, even the semi-auto only games, which is what I generally play, the rate of fire is so high on some of these trigger setups, especially with the HPA guns. 30-round mid cap doesn't last very long. You're just putting yourself at a huge disadvantage. Sorry, a 30-round mid cap. There's just no way you're going to be able to keep up. Especially if you're only carrying, your standard loadout is 7-8 mags. I mean, that's like 210, 240 BBs total. And I understand some people are like, I want to put myself at a disadvantage for the challenge. Sport's challenging enough. So I would highly recommend mid caps. Generally speaking, I carry, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 mid caps and 1 in the gun. Actually 5 mid caps, 1 mid cap in the gun. And usually I'll carry what I call an Alamo bag, which is a high cap if the field allows it. So my last magazine is a high cap just so I can stay in the fight a lot longer. But I very rarely get to that. Usually I only use 2 or 3 mags in a game. I'm pretty sparse when I shoot. And even I am saying no, I would never use a real cap. It's just way too big a disadvantage. I like the AK-47 pick in the background though. That's an M4. That's an M4. That's the same M4. I don't know what AK-47 pick you're looking at, but I like AKs. I'm down to 1. I only own 1 real world AK, real steel AK, and 1 airsoft AK. I love them, but not behind me. Odessia Donnelly, thank you for all the good content. Me and my friends always learn a lot from you. Thank you. No problem. From South Korea. Good that you're checking in again. Uppang the man. With the cost of simunition, would it be more viable for professionals doing force on force? Be better since you could train more for the same cost. Are you saying that would it be more viable to use airsoft for force on force rather than simunitions? Not really. And here's the problem: is buying airsoft for an entire team is kind of cost prohibitive, and maintaining those airsoft guns is a pain in the ass. For example, if my team bought, let's say, 25 airsoft guns, maintaining those airsoft guns would fall on me. And I don't want to maintain 25 airsoft guns. That's a nightmare because real world guys that don't understand airsoft are going to abuse the shit out of them. And they're, at the end of the day, all airsoft is varying degrees of cheap Chinese shit. Well-made airsoft can be pretty sturdy, but you still got to be careful with it. You still got to be more careful than you would with a real firearm. They just don't put up with the abuse well, and they do require some technical knowledge to maintain. I don't see real-world guys who aren't into airsoft doing that. The nice thing about simunitions, or more correctly, what we use right now is UTM bolts. It's just a different simunition's a name brand, so UTM is just another form of force-on-force projectile. Simunition or UTMs, you get a bolt. You pull the bolt carrier group out of your M4. You put the UTM bolt carrier group in, and there you go. You're off for the races. And you just load UTM cartridges. They're, instead of being a center fire cartridge, they're rim fire, so a real bullet can't be fired out of it. Blue markings on them, so it looks so everybody can see, hey, you got UTM rounds in there. They have about a third of the range of airsoft. They don't have the range, and they you lob them and they lose. They don't fly straight at all. They drop quickly, and but they do leave marks on people, and they do sting. They sting like a son of a bitch. Do they sting more than airsoft? Yeah, especially at close range. But at long range, and for those things, long range is, 100 feet is extreme long range for a UTM round. They barely do anything. So at 100 feet, an airsoft gun is going to sting more than a UTM. Up close, though, UTMs sting a lot. They have different grades of them. They have different velocities. But it's really nice from a real world perspective of being able to pull. Here's my work gun that I use at work. Pull that bolt carrier group out, put the UTM in. I'm training with the real gun I actually use at work. Real optics, real light, real everything. That and scenarios, real world training scenarios, they're not really fun. I've done a lot of work on that. I've done some videos on this. It's really not like airsoft, and that airsoft is recreation. It's a lot of fun, and there is a training aspect to it if you do it right. But the real world training is, the scenarios are just different. They're real world. They're real world scenarios, and that means most people aren't going to shoot. A lot, you're going to end up, you're part of a 12-man element or whatever, 15-man element. Maybe only 2 or 3 guys are going to get trigger time. They're only going to fire, 5 rounds, 6 rounds. And then you're going to talk about it. You're going to debrief it for a while, and then you're going to set it up, and you're going to go again. In airsoft, you don't debrief until it's all done and you're, at the bar afterwards. Real world, most places, when you do a scenario, debrief. You'll sit around and you'll debrief it for 10, 15 minutes, and you'll do a 4 or 5 minute scenario, and you'll debrief it for 10 minutes. So everybody that didn't do anything, everybody that went in rooms that didn't have anything going on, everybody that didn't do anything can learn from the people who did do something. It's to be brutally honest, it's not the most efficient way to train people. The advantage of airsoft is reps and reps and reps and reps and reps, because you just go back to respawn and you come back out. So all those little mini gunfights you're getting into, great training, but not really touching on the decision making at all. And SWAT's all about decision making, so it's not really apples and apples at all. Projectiles and using cover, yes. Other than that, no. Brian Linquico. But to be fair to American companies, I have an AWS lab belt, and Chinese stuff cannot compare. Quality belts are so stiff. Chest rigs, though. I'm just about to buy one of both to compare. Well, there's no doubt that American-made products, when it comes to tactical gear, are superior. They cost more. Okay, they're better made, better materials. I'm sure, there's places in China that can make gear that's every bit as good. I really do. But they're not selling that gear to the American market. Does that make sense? The reason people buy Chinese gear is because it's cheaper. And it's because they can pay people pennies a day to build stuff in slave labor factories. I'll probably get shut down from YouTube would probably get rid of this for even mentioning that, but the working conditions there are horrible. So that's how they produce stuff so cheaply. Okay, so here you got to pay somebody, $20 an hour and benefits and insurance and all that good stuff. And over there they pay them nothing. So I'm confident that China is capable of making good stuff, but that's not what drives the market. What drives the market is cheap stuff. That's cheaper. And I'm like anybody else. I don't want to spend $80 on a, dangler pouch. Why would I do that when I can spend 26, depending on what I'm using it for? Now, if I'm going to carry it over a mountain, my life depends on it. Yeah, let's spend the money on the good dangler pouch. I'm just going to sit on the range and hang out with my friends and play Airsoft. And that $25 one will probably get you by just fine. Mayday-san Airsoft. Do you prefer play one life game modes or multiple? Here in Japan, we almost exclusively play one life. It depends on how big the field is. The problem with one life games is they tend to encourage people to cheat. That is what it is. They encourage people to not call their hits. It also encourages people to camp. A lot of camping, because they don't want to be the first guy that gets out and then you're stuck sitting in the respawn waiting for everybody else to get done. It's actually it's miserable. I prefer medic rules, simple medic rules, like putting your hand on the guy for 30-second count. Everybody gets one medic per life. I like that rule just because it keeps people in contact. And that's what we're here for, right? We're here for the contact. We're here for the gunfight. I think people are more like, and I don't observe it like hit calling issues that often really at all. I think most people bitching about hit calling are new players who are not experienced enough to know how far their guns actually shoot. And they think they're hitting someone when they're not. So hit calling really isn't that big an issue, but I see it more in one life to live games. If there is a medic component, people call hit expecting to get medicked, and then it doesn't happen. Well, then they've already committed to saying hit, so then they take the walk. I prefer some sort of medic rule. I really do. Not that I don't like playing one life to live games sometimes, but as a general rule, I like having more contact. I don't like people camping. Mr. Cook of Wonder, what do you think the future combat hobby will be? I don't know. I don't think Airsoft's going anywhere anytime soon. I think paintball is continuing to die a slow death. And really what's been keeping paintball alive is speedball and Speed QB or Airsoft's, speed games, competitive games. Those are the rage right now. That's the fastest growing part of this hobby by far is Speed QB. And that is just taking all the people out of the only thing that was keeping paintball alive. And I think we pick up a lot. Airsoft as a sport picks up a lot more players from the paintball side, and they go straight to Speed QB. They don't do the Milsim thing. They go straight to Speed QB. Without a doubt, that is the fastest growing part of the hobby. Those are your biggest and most successful Airsoft facilities right now. Southern California is full of them. Arizona area is full of them. These indoor CQB places. And it's HPA guns, high rate of fire builds, lightning crap, bullshit trigger pulls like this, feathering the trigger, which is, ridiculous. But, that's the direction the sport's going. And a lot of people, I'm a Milsim guy. I'm a Woodland guy. A lot of people bitch and moan about it. Is it my style of play? No, not exactly. But you got to appreciate it because all Airsoft is good Airsoft. Okay, the hobby's not big enough for us to make divisions and pick sides and talk shit about each other. And to be brutally honest, every sport evolves. Every sport evolves. I don't care what it is. And to think that you're going to change that natural evolution of the sport by complaining about it, not going to happen. You ain't going to change what's coming. You just either you roll with the punches, you learn to play that, you play what you still enjoy while it's still there, or you get out of the sport. And that there is what it is. But it's the natural progression of things. And some of the Speed QB stuff, where they really kind of trim all the fat off it. They run clean guns, no optics, HPA tapped pistols and shit, so they don't expose themselves as much as they would with a rifle. So it's easier to use both strong and weak side. that's really getting down to the bare bones of it, to the degree that it doesn't even it doesn't even hardly look like what I do in the real world anymore. Some of the fundamentals are still there, using cover, pieing, stuff like that. But as far as the way they play and how they rush and how they push, you can kind of see little semblances of real world, CQB, and then you don't. It's just been so modified by their sport. And I think the modification comes because they do what works. Okay, they wouldn't do it if it wasn't effective, because it is a competition, and competition does weed out the effective versus the ineffective. And I think there is something there for real world guys like me to look at and observe and ask, is that a good technique? Is there value there that I can take back to the real world and use in what these guys are doing? Or are they just being reckless because it's such a short game and they know that they can respawn? Or they know that, that there's a low consequence for getting hit. But that's probably more likely what's going on. But it's still worth looking at and giving them the credit that's due. It's their sport and it's rapidly evolving. So that's I don't think Airsoft's going anywhere. But I think the whole sport's going in the direction of speed QB. I don't think any sort of civilian simunitions is coming anytime soon. It's just too cost prohibitive. Way too cost prohibitive. And there's way too much liability for any company to do it. So that's not coming anytime soon. Did you mention you have an SR25? Is that for Airsoft or for your profession? If Airsoft, which brand do you go with? Kyle, I use the Cyma Platinum SR25. You can, I did a bunch of videos on it. I did both a project video and a review of it. You can just check them out on my channel. Short version, I love it. Great gun. It's my primary gun right now when I'm playing out in the field. Real world, yes, I have an SR25, but it's not an SR25. It's with a Seekins Precision. It's an AR-10. Great gun. Do I use it operationally real world? Not yet. Not yet. Hasn't come up. And I got to do some quals with it and everything to make that happen. And there's other guns that we have at our disposal that probably do the job as well. But my personal rifle is a Seekins Precision AR-10. I really like it. I don't get out and shoot it enough. It's chambered in .308. So that's the short version of that. Odessia Donnelly, have you ever experienced drug busting? What usually happens? And what do you mean drug busting? Like high-risk search warrants? I've done over 700 high-risk search warrants. It's probably closer to 800 now in my approaching 13 years of SWAT. So I've done predominantly narcotics warrants. So yeah, I do a lot of warrants. A lot of kicking the door and going in. Most of the time on a drug warrant, everybody's compliant. They all surrender. I mean, the movies will have you believe that there's lots of shootouts. It doesn't happen. 700 warrants. I've never shot a living human being. I've come close a lot. That's not to say I've been in shootings, but they weren't on SWAT warrants. So, SWAT warrants are, there's nothing routine about them, but they're not as the movies would have you believe. If your tactics are good, you bring the right tools, well-trained guys to the party, and everybody does everything right. Only the truly crazy and the truly suicidal are going to resist, because death is assured. They might get one of us, but then death is assured. And most guys, when it comes down to it, they don't want to die. They're going to take their chances in court. So, yeah, a lot of drug busts. Mr. Cook of Wonder. Yeah, everyone in the amount I want. Polar Stars. Oh, Airsoft Miami banned feathering triggers and modified triggers. Really? Airsoft Miami banned feathering triggers and modified triggers. I'm curious how they plan on enforcing that. I think it's a good thing to ban that. I don't like that crap. I imagine there's a lot of people that have bitched about it when they did it, when they passed that rule. And, here's the problem with these high semi-auto builds, but you're feathering the trigger and it's got an HPA gun. So it's, there's guys wrapping out 20 BBs a second in semi-auto. And they do it because it gives them an advantage. Pretty simple. And they bitch and moan when the field says you can't do that anymore. Well, why? I spent the money, right? I spent the money on my HPA setup and my cool triggers, so I should be able to do what I want. The problem is you got to think about it from the field owner's perspective. The field owner is trying to make money. He has a product, he has a service that he's telling people, come here and play Airsoft. Most of his money does not come from the people who come in and are feathering triggers. Most of their money comes from rentals and people coming in and just try out the sport. If every time they come, they get their asses kicked and they get just peppered by these guys doing the feathering trigger crap and lighting them up 30 times, that person is discouraged from returning. The sport dies. So, I mean, I've heard people bitch and complain, well, they're just discriminating against good players. Okay, well, maybe they're discriminating against people who are overshooting their clientele. They're running a business. Okay, that's why players get banned, because you're keeping that person from running their business. So those players are their own worst enemy. They're their own worst enemy of the sport. I think there's maybe some creative solutions. I think maybe, hey, having just here's an open play and just call it like, I don't know, advanced or whatever, where HPA play, and then you have rental only play, and keep the HPA guys from going in there and just whipping up on the rentals and the young kids, because you're just destroying your own sport. I think maybe that's a better answer than just banning it, is just making a separate category, a separate, do the games every other time or a separate night or whatever, where the HPA guys can come in and just feather the shit out of each other. But you still have to have some sort of novice level gameplay. There's got to be some time where the novice can come in and get a rental and enjoy the sport and learn without getting the shit beat out of them. I mean, there's just is what it is. Otherwise, you're just killing your own sport. Mr. Crook of Wonder, yeah, they had a Discord thing about it. They mentioned it was a family place and they were messing with potential Airsoft customers. Exactly. Airsoft places, CQB fields are running a business. Their goal is to make money. You can't fault them for that. Their goal is not to cater to you, the guy who spent a lot of money on their gun. That's not their goal. That's not their job. And you're kind of being selfish when you're bitching about it. I get you being upset, but they're not discriminating against good players. They're trying to keep their business open. Because they already banned HPA. Yeah. I've seen some AEGs with some high-speed gear setups, and some of the MOSFETs and the high-speed motors doing some pretty impressive. Once again, semi-auto feathering the trigger and definitely getting up there. Not quite as fast as the HPAs, but definitely, what I would consider full auto, even though it's technically semi-auto. All right, all caught up in the chat. I got a few more minutes here. Gonna finish my drink here. Side note, what am I drinking tonight, if anybody's wondering? It's not my usual whiskey. I am drinking Amarula. This stuff's from South Africa. It's kind of hard to find here in the States. Not impossible. It's hard to find. It's about $20 a bottle. I visited South Africa about 12 years ago, right after the World Cup there, and spent 2 weeks down there. My then wife, her sister's husband was from there. Whatever. Went there, went on safaris, saw lots of animals, really cool stuff. But while I was there, I drank this stuff, caught a liking to it, and now I drink it usually only during the holidays. I drink it instead of eggnog because it is very high calorie. It's a creamy liqueur. It's really it's kind of a little bit fruity. It comes off the Amarula tree. If you Google or you do a YouTube search of animals eating Amarula fruit, it falls on the ground and it ripens on the ground and it kind of ferments a little bit. So then there's like videos of monkeys and stuff getting drunk eating this fermented fruit off the ground. That's what it's famous for. But it does make a really good alcoholic beverage, so highly recommend. And they're not paying me or anything for this. I'm just, if you're wondering, that is the weird drink I'm drinking tonight. High calorie though. Don't make it like a normal drink for you. You'll gain a lot of weight fast. Mayday-san Airsoft. As someone from the real world, would you be open to running gas blowback rifles? No. No. Gas blowback rifles don't really, in my opinion, work really well. They're really expensive. The magazines are expensive. The magazine capacity is relatively low. They're just a pain in the ass. I know that the gas blowback rifle folks love their gas blowback rifles. I've talked about this at length in the past. God bless them. I'm glad your products are out there for you that you like. I just don't think they're very practical. And I think that's why it's still such a rare and relatively small part of the airsoft, the whole airsoft sport is this little subsection of diehard gas blowback rifle guys. God bless you. When they bring them to the field, I'm like, hey, that thing's cool. I like to shoot it. I like checking it out because the recoil is kind of cool. But I've never been so impressed with it that I want to go down that rabbit hole and spend all the money and deal with all the bullshit when you can just, HPA, do an HPA system. So, and even gas blowback rifles, everybody brags about the recoil. It still doesn't even come close to real world recoil, so it's not really worth fucking with, in my opinion. But if you like it, more power to you. Brian Linquico, I suppose their RPS limit should be what Jerry Mikulik's fast rate is. Yeah, that wouldn't work. Yeah, he's a freak of nature. Ciroc. No, it's not Ciroc. It's good stuff. I just drink it around the holidays. I'll go back to whiskey. So, if that is all the questions, real quick pitch for the channel. Still making videos, obviously. I do sell merch. If you like my channel, you want to support my content, I don't make any money from YouTube. I make like, I don't know, $20, $30 a month. It's going up slowly, incrementally, but there's not a lot of money for YouTube channels in YouTube for airsoft channels. It's just not. Lots of money for little kids playing with toys, but not a lot of money for YouTube guys because there's just not, or airsoft guys, there's not a lot of people watching. So I do this because I love it. I do it because I like putting the information out there. I like trying to bridge the gap between real world and airsoft and give airsoft guys some real world stuff that works. So the small amount of it that does transfer over, I like sharing that with them. Having said that, I don't work for free, and it's nice. I built a merch store in this last year and started selling some patches and stuff. And I plug this at the end of our video. There's my patches. They come in, I got blue, gray scale, and I got red. I think these are like $6 on the web store. You can find that at unsavorytees.com. Just go over to Unsavory Army on that website and scroll down to Gunfather Milsim. You'll see all that stuff on their channel, their merch store. You can also look at the banner of my channel in the lower right part of the banner. There's a little link to it. I think there's a link in the description somewhere on the YouTube channel. Also selling Gunfather Milsim t-shirts, which I'm wearing here. Finally settled on a design. Looks like that. American flag. There's the back. So selling these. Also selling slings. They're in the other room. So you can look at any number of videos and see me using my 1-point bungee slings. It's my design. It's a good sling. Pretty reasonably priced. I believe they're $35 and $40 depending if you want the 1-point or the 2-point. And for a limited time, just go there, buy a sling or a t-shirt, and under the coupon code, just put free patch, all caps, no space, and I'll throw in a free Gunfather Milsim patch. Don't make a ton of money on merch, but I definitely make a lot more money on merch than I do, from YouTube. So if you want to support the channel, like, subscribe, hit the bell, hit the update. You know how YouTube works. And or better yet, buy some merch. Tell me what you think about it. And other than that, other stuff on the horizon. Now that COVID's kind of settling down-ish, I'm looking at bringing back Gunfather Academy. I'm going to put on a CQB class. I'm looking for a location right now. I'm talking to different CQB fields in the Midwest, looking for one to do the first class. I'm not sure who that's going to be. There's 3 different locations I'm looking at right now, just figuring out which one works best. I'd love to do an 8-hour class, but let's be brutally honest, airsoft players are not going to pay attention for 8 hours, even if it's a lot of fun. So realistically, it's probably going to be a 4 to 6 hour class with some open play on the end. It's going to be all CQB and all the stuff I show on the channel, plus some more bonus material, and just kind of, show you guys my method, which is, I didn't develop it. It's the method that I was taught, but I found it to be extremely effective in airsoft. And, that's the method I want to show guys and teach them something, and hopefully it takes off and I can go all over the country. Maybe, we'll see what happens. But it'd be cool if I could go, to some of these CQB fields in Southern California and Phoenix, and I'd love to go to Ballahack, all these other places. I'd love to go check them out and teach a class and hang out and shoot at each other quite a bit. So that's all I got from everybody. Thanks for watching, and it is the holidays, so hope everybody had a good Christmas and have a happy New Year. And thanks for watching.